Welcome. Welcome to Wharton Moneyball. Welcome to a full hour of sports analytics here on the Wharton Podcast Network. This is Cade Massey hosting with three-quarters of the co-hosts here. Two of my three co-hosts, Shane Jensen is in here, and Eric Bradlow is also Shane from home, and Eric from a couple floors above me. Eric and I are both in the office at the moment. Adi Wyner is out doing Adi things, which I believe are classroom related right now. He's down doing his job teaching Wharton students. He'll be back. Some combination of us are here almost every week of the year, have been for more than 11 years now. Delighted to be here. We're recording on a Tuesday afternoon as we usually do. I believe we're right in that kind of narrow window of what Matty Datz used to call the sports equinox. All sports, was it last night? Was it tonight? There's some day here where all four major North American sports are playing, and there's only like 1 or 2 days where this is true. So
plus 2 baseball games for the price of one.
Exactly. Well, for those of us who decided to spend our evening watching it, perhaps, but we're going to leave a little baseball to the second half. God knows we can spend the whole half or even the whole show talking baseball with all that's going on with the Dodgers and Ohtani and that world. In the first half, we're going to do our usual thing, which is bring a guest in here. And it's been a little while. It's been a couple weeks anyway since we've talked football on the show. So we grabbed one of our favorites to talk football with. We're going to talk college football this half hour with Bill Connelly. Bill C. is with us in the house from Columbia, Missouri. Bill Connelly, good to see you. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. We're, 2/3 of the way or so through the regular season here. But, there's still another 6-month playoff after that.
Well, happily, it's not 6 months, but it is a little bit of a stretch, and it'll go fast in the beginning, then kind of get slow at the end. But yeah, right. 4 regular season games left for most teams, and that just seems absurd. I mean, that's really surprising. And we want to get caught up. I have to admit a couple things. I've had my head deeply into teaching the last few weeks, which has corresponded nicely with a particular team from Austin, Texas, not performing especially well. So between the two, I'm less out of touch than I usually am on football. But I got some questions for you, Bill. I want to start, though, with some praise. I've come to praise you, not to question you to begin with. Bill, we've talked about this on the show. I think we should talk about it like every week. When you're in our business, you understand that uncertainty is really important and it's hard to communicate. And moreover, people don't want to hear about it. And so the whole question, how do you communicate the importance of uncertainty, the impact of uncertainty, the underappreciated consequences of uncertainty? How do you do that? It's hard to do. You've come up with a method. You're not even trying to be a teacher of uncertainty. I think you're just trying to be a clever writer. But you've come up with this method this year, which I think is absolutely inspired. You in your preview columns every week. So Bill C., y'all know this, Bill Connelly writes for ESPN. He's got a brand new book out. We should say Forward Progress, come out this fall on the future of college football. Bill's, we know, a college football historian, but he's also apparently a college football futurist. He's going to merge these things and tell us where we're going. College football forward progress. Bill's an author of multiple books. Anyway, weekly columns previewing college football. In this column, he does this thing, I think he calls them chaos superfectas. Chaos superfectas. Bill, if you haven't made t-shirts yet, please do and send me one. I want a Bill Connelly chaos superfecta t-shirt. This is the concept, guys. This is the concept. Get this. Every week.
Is it different than the concept that I've been talking about and dreaming, as you know, for 11 and a half years in college football? Like, if only Boise State could win out, and then there'd be a conflict between. This is not the chaos superfecta you're talking about? Or
each Saturday has its specific chaos.
So, Bill, I should shut up and tell us about your chaos superfecta.
This is the second year I've been doing it, and I should have quit after last year because it killed last year. But the idea is basically, take 4 games and mash them into 4 games where the spread is, probably 7, 10, 14 points. And win probabilities generally end up being between about 72 and 95 with my SP Plus ratings. Mash them together and basically say, hey, there's only like a 43% chance that all 4 of these teams win. That way, I enjoyed it. I basically replaced the picks section in my column each Friday with this, which is so much better. I was agonizing over late in the week spreads. All the good ones were gone. I was spending way too much time just to try to hit like 52%, and the world didn't need a 9 millionth best bets section or column. So I did something that was very me instead. And yeah, basically said I think this coming week's going to be Georgia Tech against Maryland, Texas Tech against Kansas State, Louisville against Virginia Tech, and Pitt against Stanford. There's only a 43% chance that all 4 of those teams win, which basically means we're getting an upset somewhere. Somebody is going to lose on the road, and it's going to be fun. And that's my little way of reminding everybody that we're never that far away. We never completely know what's going on, and that we're never that far away from something chaotic happening.
Exactly. He's reminding everybody that we don't know, that even though each one of these by themselves, here's the thing, each one of these feel by themselves like a more or less lock. And in this case, it doesn't quite feel that way, but these things are designed so that each one feels kind of like a lock, but people have a hard time understanding, but it's technically 75%. It's not a lock. It's 75 or it's 85%. Right. If you only give them one, it's hard for them to understand. But if you give them a portfolio and say, okay, guys, fine. Each one of them feels like a lock, but I'm telling you, there's a 50-50 chance, and this is how Bill does it every week, roughly 50-50 chance that one of these favorites is going to go down because we put together a bundle of 4. Now we can start understanding uncertainty better. So I just think it's friggin' brilliant.
Well, and last year I overachieved big time. It got like 60-70% of the weeks where I hit at least one.
Hold on, no, you're not supposed to do that. No, now you that's not what you want. You want 50. You want exactly on the number or whatever.
We're regressing to the mean this year. We started 3-1 this year too. I'm like, oh my God, I am a genius, and now we've lost 4 out of 5. So now we're at 4-5 for the season, which is basically where we should be.
Right. All right. So does anybody else love this as much as we do? This is such a Wharton Moneyball concept. I mean, I'm telling you, I want a t-shirt badly, but have you received any accolades or any appreciation for this thing at all?
I have definitely noticed that like 2 people asked where the picks went. That's it. In a year and a half, nobody's saying, I really miss your picks, but they enjoy the chaos idea.
Bill, I have a comment on this and then a question. The comment is, I think people don't understand, I'll call it the probability of A and B and C and D is the product of those probabilities. So even if it was 0.75 to the 4th is about a quarter, right? So that means the probability that all of those favorites are going to win is that. People don't understand what I call the probability of at least one upset is 1 minus the probability of no upsets. And so you can do that math, and you end up with typically not a very small number. There's a high probability of at least one upset, the kind of what I call group set probabilities. That was my comment. But then I was going to ask you a question. I always have a belief, but you're going to tell me I'm nuts. Like, you listed 4 games. Let's assume they're not all being played at the same time. How nuts am I to think that upsets like this are not independent of each other? Like, for example, all right, so Cade says I'm nuts. I always say that, you know what, I'll make it up. I'm a 10 o'clock p.m. West Coast game, which is 7 o'clock. I'll make it up. I've seen someone beat Georgia Tech. This team beats this. Why aren't we next? Is there any evidence that there's not independence? Cade's saying no. Good. I just have to ask.
My general pushback would be that the game days are so hilariously involved. We're on the bus at this time. Like, I mean, guys are going to have their phones here and there or whatever. If like there's a huge upset in the noon game and you're playing at 9:30, you probably know about the noon upset.
Is that worth anything, Bill?
Well, I think the very specific instance where I could see it maybe being worth something would be like in a conference title race situation where you need so-and-so to win at noon for you to have a chance at 3:30. And now they were ahead when you went in there, and maybe there's a little extra juice going on. Like, okay, we've got the chance. Like in a specific scenario like that, yes. But if it's like Georgia Tech.
Maybe I'm not so nuts. Let's listen to Bill here. Let's keep going.
He's being kind.
In a situation where it's like Georgia Tech lost at noon, so we're playing Texas Tech at 7. We have a chance. Like, that probably isn't the case, but specific one result, we need this to happen, I could see.
It is endlessly entertaining how our rigorous Bayesian AI vice dean somehow periodically channels his inner, 14-year-old and decides that things like
we're all 14-year-olds as sports
we've got different varieties on that. That's true. Okay, Bill, let's talk one more question before we get to actual football. The coaching carousel is alive and well and as interesting as ever, if not more so. And I'm curious of the many open seats going around in this carousel, or the various issues or connections or whatever, what most interests you, Red?
I was posting about this on social earlier, on Blue Sky, actually. Like, I think the most interesting thing to me is, well, to use my hometown team as an example, like right now, Eli Drinkwitz he has a top 10 or 15 salary here at Missouri. He's rumored, like, he's going to be on Florida's list. He's going to be on LSU's list. If Texas comes open, if so-and-so comes open, like, this could be an absolute nuts. He was on Penn State's list supposedly at first. He's on all these lists. He's going to get a huge raise this year. But if you're Missouri, and your options are, well, if you're going to try to keep him, you'll offer him a pretty healthy raise, and suddenly you'll be paying like a top 5, 6, 7 salary probably if he accepts it. But from a programmatic perspective, it's going to be really interesting with all these coaching hires. Some are going to go after the splash, and part of that is just, that athletic directors have to, impress the big dumb money boosters by making a big dumb move. Like, that's how, you got to speak. Otherwise, you'll get fired, and you don't want to get fired. So you're going to try to impress them by making a splash and paying a lot for a coach. Others are going to, the idea is, like, would it be better for Missouri's program if Drinkwitz if you're going to have to pay him like $12 million a year to keep him, is it better to pay him $12 million a year when you're not, Texas or Ohio State? Or would it be basically say, like, man, thanks for for the job you did. Go enjoy yourself at Florida. We're going to hire an up-and-coming offensive coordinator. We're going to pay him $4 million a year. We're going to plug that extra $12 million a year into NIL money for better recruits and better transfers. And you can probably get 6, 8, 10 really solid transfers for $8 million. Does that help your team more than the bird-in-hand good coach that you already have? And so that's going to be, again, like, every athletic director is going to try to keep their expensive coach, but from what we've seen, the teams that are at the top of college football right now, most of them weren't hired as great successes elsewhere for a lot of money. Like, maybe whether it's something you would aim to do or not, maybe it's better for a program to only pay $4 million a year and plug extra money into talent, since you have to pay for talent now.
Well, that's interesting. That's a calculus that they haven't had in the past. So it's kind of a new world in that respect. Bill, absurd question, but kind of a fun way to think about it. If you had to go work as the head coach of either LSU, Florida, or Penn State, I'm setting aside where you want to live, but considering all factors, which is, like, you've got the recruiting hotbeds, but you've also got maybe some crazy fan bases. Which situation would you rather walk into?
Yeah, I immediately, like, food-wise, LSU, but
of course you're going to choose food.
Well, I do think one of the things that kind of blessed James Franklin ended up cursing him, but being Big Ten's a more top-heavy conference, and we're seeing that this year, especially with Penn State kind of falling apart. Like, Ohio State's going to get all the way to the end of the season without having played like a top 10 or 15 level team.
Just note, it's a 20-point line this weekend. This was one of the biggest games of the year we look forward to. This was a top 5 on anybody's list, game of the year, Ohio State, Penn State, and now it's a 20-point line.
Yeah, and obviously Indiana's better than expected, and individual teams within the Big Ten are better than expected. But overall, like, even with the SEC not having any of, I think, the top 4 teams in my SP Plus ratings, it's still, like, on average 4 points better than any other conference because it has all the depth. You just have more possible losses in the SEC, and we might find out that once a couple 9-3 SEC teams get in, maybe we think about this a little different, but the 1 year of the 12-team playoff, we know that the teams with the better records got in. And just on that alone, you would think that maybe Penn State, considering they're going to pay as much as anybody, you might have to travel further and add a little more travel into your recruiting budget. But I don't think, James Franklin never really struggled to sign 4-star recruits. Feels like maybe that's the place to be. You're just more likely to have an extra win on the schedule and get in. And of course, like I said, that ended up cursing James Franklin because he won all those games but could never beat Ohio State.
Right.
And the moment he started losing to mortal teams, he was out the door.
Well, you're naming another dynamic that's just new in college football, and that is between transfers, NIL, and realignment. The SEC is just an entirely different animal to navigate from an expected losses perspective. And you said top heavy. And you said, and then the scheduling vagaries means you've only got a couple teams you'd worry about, and you likely won't have to play all of them. You some years won't have to play any of them. And the thing is, if you miss those guys, the rest of your schedule looks like the ACC. that they literally, if you look at the way anybody who ensembles power rankings, you've got 3 or 4, maybe just 3 Big Ten teams that up there competing, maybe even higher than the SEC. But then there's a vast gulf, and a bunch of those folks look like the ACC. Okay, so you're going to State College, fine. Okay, now let's talk a little bit of football. Last weekend you had a big game. You had Vandy, Missouri, and so you saw Vandy kind of up close in a way. And they this week go to Texas. Texas has looked more or less wretched, like they could just end up in the ditch any minute. They've been in the ditch and somehow miraculously come out of it a couple of weeks in a row. They are 1.5-point favorites. Their 5-star supposed number 1 draft pick quarterback is in concussion protocol. Vandy's coming to town. They just knocked off Missouri, and Longhorns are 1.5-point favorites. Please explain this to me.
Well, number one, Texas defense is awesome.
Hold on,
that's
did
the
you
reason
see
they
the
haven't
game last
steered.
weekend against Mississippi State and the 400-something yards that they gave up on? Did you see that?
I also saw the game before that when the Kentucky didn't score and Oklahoma didn't score, and the Ohio State scored 14.
We'll see.
They're still 7th nationally in points per drive, which granted isn't quite as good as I would have expected since they've only played really one like top 30 offense, but still good. The defense is good. I'm really curious about Vandy's offense. My buddy Bud Elliott and I used to talk a lot about covariance within teams where
what? Huh? Are you flirting with us? Are you flirting with us, Bill?
I knew this would be a good place
Eric
to bring
just
it up.
woke up. Are you kidding? Adi's gonna be jealous. He missed the show. Covariance.
Where basically some teams, you have a Utah, for example, where they're going to crush teams that have less talent than them. They just know, like their style is built around just absolutely devouring teams, being more physical than them. But they're less likely to, they might underachieve against top 5 or 10 teams against projections. Whereas other teams are the exact opposite and can craft a game plan and play great. South Carolina almost beats Alabama, but then stinks against lesser teams. So with Vanderbilt, I kind of get the inklings of a designed to destroy bad defenses offense. And basically, like they did well against LSU's defense, although LSU's defense went from elite to has been significantly worse over these last few weeks. They scored 14 points on Alabama. They scored 17 on Missouri, and 7 of that came from a short field at the end. And they gained like 250 yards for the game, 260, something like that. And Texas and Missouri have pretty similar defenses, I think, but Texas has 4- and 5-star athletes everywhere you look, and Vanderbilt's not going to be able to really move them. So I do kind of wonder about that aspect of things. The other thing is, doesn't really matter if you play your backup quarterback if your first stringer stinks, and you're not going to be punished much for that. Yeah. I think the line opened at 3.5, so maybe it came down a couple points to account for Arch Manning, but it is some amazing major Applewhite potential situation here where the Sims gets hurt and Applewhite comes in and is great. Matthew Caldwell has the world just at his disposal right now.
Well, that's gonna be fun. For those who don't know, Caldwell was a 4th-year transfer brought in just to have somebody who wasn't fresh out of high school as a backup to Manning. His latest stop was Troy. I think the other stops were smaller than that. He comes in last week and throws a game-winning touchdown in overtime.
Beautiful.
And audibled into it at that. So, good start. Maybe it's the other, we'll take he doesn't have to be a complete progeny that Manning is. We'll take someone who, can execute a few simple throws. Okay, fine. Eric's got his hand up there.
So I was going to talk about it since we're already on Vandy UT. I can make the same comment here as I would on the Ohio State-Penn State game, which you just talked about beforehand. You're someone, Bill, that cares, as we all do, about uncertainty. Is there any sim you think at the beginning of the season that would have had Ohio State as a 20-point favorite on Penn State? Do you think there's any sim at the beginning of the season that would have had Vandy favored against Texas? I'm just trying to use this as a general comment. Yeah. Do we even massively underestimate uncertainty? Both these games make me think there's no sim where this would have been in the distribution.
It has been funny. I've been working with my buddy Justin Moore. He runs a lot of the simulation stuff with me, and he plugs so much uncertainty into when he's running like conference title race, college football playoff forecast type of stuff. And so at the beginning of the year, I barely had any team in any conference with like a greater than 20% chance of winning the conference. And at first glance, I'm like, oh boy, I don't know about that. But the way things have played out, it's really, it did a great job, I think, of forecasting that uncertainty. And we're still in a period where there are only a couple of conferences with even like 50% title odds, I think. I think that's absolutely the Penn State situation. I mean, they've only fallen to like 18th or something in SP Plus. And honestly, like everybody's making fun of that at the moment on social, but the last game they played was against a really solid Iowa team, and the projection was like 24.5 to 24.3, and the game was 25-24 Iowa. So of course they didn't fall after that game. They had a blocked field goal return in there, which helped. But I mean, I think they're still a top 20 or 30 team, and if you're, I think you can account for that. Like if you're projected whatever Penn State was, top 3 or so, you've got to plug. And they wouldn't have had as much uncertainty as other teams because they didn't hit the transfer portal as much. That was one of the ways we tried to bake it in. Like if you have 60 new guys, then we're going to make a huge error bar for you. But they still, I think you should be able to do that. We just ended up with some pretty wild outlier between Clemson and Penn State, especially. We had some pretty big outliers at the top.
So, Eric, it's such a good question, Eric. It emphasizes how your sim has to have enough uncertainty into it. And I think the world's slowly catching up to this. Early on, when people were running sims, they'd get their power rankings in the top of the season. They'd say, well, Penn State's at 22 and Florida State's at 18, and that's the number. And all their sims would be based on that number. And everything else is just a coin flip on, but that's just crazy. I feel like the Texas Vandy outcome is utterly within the realm of normal sims. Penn State's is, I'm hearing Bill give a little pep talk here, which is great, but I mean, that's a pretty big structural change to see those 3 losses. It ought to be in there because we've got 130 something teams. And so you should see some extreme drops, but it is extreme. Bill, another on-field question that I just continue to get a kick out of. I'm honestly curious. You watch more than me. You've been watching it longer than I have. But I still can't get used to like the USC Nebraska midseason games, like USC going to Lincoln. One of my favorite football watching moments of this season so far was like a random afternoon. I came in and plopped down and watched USC in Urbana-Champaign. It was a great game, but it was just, I got such a kick out of it. It's like a small stadium and here's USC playing in the middle of the Big Ten. I'm just not used to it.
Yeah, at least with this one, we have the team of the 90s versus the team of the 2000s.
Exactly.
So that's kind of
It's a helmet game. It's a major helmet game in the middle of November.
Right. This is one of the ones I guess they sold when they were convincing NBC to pay absurd amounts of money to air like Michigan State versus Purdue in prime time. Like they have a couple, like it's been a pretty bad year for them. But I'm not. There is a novelty to a lot of it. I remember for my book, I talked to my friend Nam. He's a Cal fan. And of course, Cal fans went nuts on the internet last year, and a bunch of them traveled to Florida State and, all the places across the country. And Cal did pretty well for a while, and they kind of tried to embrace the absolute absurdity of their schedule. And I think he went to Boston for Boston College this year. A bunch of Florida State fans were going out to Cal. Like, it's all novelty stuff right now.
Yeah, right.
But in 10 years, when like, oh, I'm not going back out to Berkeley. I'm not going to this game. Like, I feel like the novelty is going to wear off, and there's just not going to be, unless you just play a ton of ridiculous, close, wild games against each other. That's bonded Missouri and South Carolina to a certain degree. They played a bunch of nutty games, and therefore they're kind of rivals, even though they're 15 hours apart. But even 15 hours isn't like 30 or whatever it would take to drive from, the Midwest to USC. So I hate that aspect. It's a lot more fun when there are some road fans and that aspect's is gonna hurt, I think, moving forward, even if, at least we get a helmet game out of this.
Yeah, right. Eric.
So, but I want to ask a question. If we looked at the preseason rankings, or let's say FPI, and now we're sitting here after
SP plus.
SP plus. And we're sitting there, we're looking at SP plus at the beginning of the season. And now we're 8, 9, whatever number of games in, okay? Are there, if I had to ask you at the beginning of the season, how many teams would it take for Bill Connelly to cover 80%, 90% of the probability of winning the national title. Are there more teams or less teams in your set right now?
I'm
asking
gonna.
questions. It's okay. I'm just to make sure my question again for our listener. Let's say at the beginning of the season, Bill thought there were 10 teams needed to cover 90% of the probability to win the national title. Is that number bigger or smaller than 10 right now? In other words, has the season gone so anomalously compared to the priors that it might actually, you might say, well, of course, the posterior has to be smaller, of course, because we've learned so much. But we might learn that we didn't actually know very much in our prior. So that's why I'm asking, is it more teams or less teams?
My initial instinct was to say less, just because I think Ohio State's just been cruising in second gear and they're going to hit the gas in the playoffs and destroy everybody. And that'll get me most of the way to 90% right there. But that aside, if I'm looking at the list, just the current SP Plus rankings, like Georgia's 12th, and I could see them finding another gear. Texas is 13th. I don't think I can see them finding another gear, but they have talent levels that could at least make it. So man, I don't know. Like it might actually, my initial reflex was less, but it might be a couple more now.
I think
just because
I think it might have gone down for a while, right? Like the certainty might have gone down in the first month of the season for sure, right? I don't know if it's rebounded all the way, but
either way, I think if that's true, by the way, even if it's the same or a little more, I don't know why I'm on a kick lately about studying. It's not really formally this in the statistical sense, but most people would say you have a prior. Of course, this is true. You have a prior. You collect data. Let's call that the likelihood, the regular season. And then by the end, you have a posterior. And most people think information reduces the posterior variance.
Sure,
so
right.
we should have more certainty potentially on a smaller number of teams. And I'm actually studying problems like this in my home field of marketing now, where actually information comes in and you're less certain, not more certain. And if this is true, I think this is great for sports. I don't think it's bad. I think it's good.
Eric, the property you need is that the information coming in is disagreeing with the prior.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is exactly correct.
Well, speaking of priors, Bill, I hadn't thought about this, but I had thought about it since I've talked with you last. Are you getting sufficient victory laps on the season, and on what topics do you deserve victory laps? So, for example, I know you get them on Clemson. A lot of people lauded you early on as they crashed and burned early. So that's number one probably on the Bill Connelly victory lap for 2025 season. I think you should get one for Texas. You called out the uncertainty around both QB and offensive line. Offensive line is the real issue, by the way.
Yeah.
And you were skeptical. You were Longhorn skeptical based on exactly those issues, which have proven true. So I'm giving you victory props for those. And look, we get things wrong all the time preseason, so we should at least note when we get them right. What else is on the T-shirt? I'm making a T-shirt for you now. What's on the T-shirt for the 2025 victory lap for Connelly?
Well, I'm pretty sure having Ohio State projected number one is going to turn out pretty well too. I
hope you're ahead of yourself.
I hope I am too. Like I want a fun play out this year. It is funny. One thing I've definitely learned this season is, as far as what you get credit for, it's all about closest to the pin, because I still had Clemson projected 10th. I was just lower than everybody else. Therefore, I was closest to being
really well
right.
put. Yeah.
Therefore, I'm getting a lot of credit for being skeptical. And you're right. I mean, with Texas, my whole line in the offseason was, if Arch is anything but the best player in the country, massive uncertainty on the O-line and receiver and core sure could matter, and that it's mattered a massive amount. But I still had them projected 5th.
Right.
In the teens now. Right. So those were the big ones. Just kind of looking through a lot of the top rankings. I mean, Michigan was a whiff, I think, to a certain degree. I didn't think they were going to be top 10, so I disagreed with SP Plus. And I had Notre Dame pretty high, which I think is still going to pay off pretty well. Penn State was a whiff, obviously, as well. But
everybody.
No, I think Ohio State, Texas, and Clemson are the ones that make that I feel pretty good about still.
Bradlow, jump in here.
Yeah, no. I was just going to ask you, do you think that I always like to ask these questions. So you think Ohio State's obviously a very good team, maybe the best team, and let's say you have some SP Plus predicted championship win probability, and now I say, oh wait, Bill, I forgot to tell you, Ryan Dew finally got off the schneid and won the title last year. Is that worth anything to you?
I think so, really.
Guys, no, Cade and Shane, no, I ask this question every time. It's not going to call momentum. I'm just going to call it. I've got this additional piece of information that maybe you haven't factored into your model, and I'm just asking you, is that worth anything?
Well, so in my head, it's worth something. To my model, it's not.
Yep.
Let's put it that way.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
it's baked in through the performance.
Right. It's baked in through the fact that they played a bunch of good teams and beat them soundly at the end of the year. Therefore, they ranked higher, and therefore it carries forward. But as far as just knowing that they won, in my head, it means I can trust Ryan Day a little bit more.
Clear, there is no covariate in your model that has the coach won a national championship, has the coach won a national championship recently. There could be, and one could assess whether that's worth anything. But at the moment, there is no factor like that in the model.
Right, just pure mental model, but not SP plus formula model.
But Bill's always been good for years at running his model, sharing his model results, and then saying, "But I would judge it this way or that way." Like he recognizes that if he was going to write down his actual predictions, it would be based on the model, but it would be permuted in some way. All right, Bill, we got to
kind of starts with the numbers and then goes from there. Yeah.
We got to cut you out here, but I want to ask you to help us look beyond the obvious two conferences and maybe even beyond the obvious two conferences. Give us one of your favorite storylines, hopefully one that's ongoing so we can still enjoy it from outside of the SEC and Big Ten. And let me constrain you from not going all the way off the edge into the FCS. I know you'd like to go into FCS, but let me constrain you to FBS for the time being and just give us an additional storyline.
I did have an answer ready to go about Harvard there, but
exactly.
My model has them like third in the country right now.
Oh my goodness!
I realize I'm not telling that to the right audience, but honestly, one of the most interesting stories, both for the present and the future of the sport, is Texas Tech. I think they made a big deal. Cody Campbell, Mr. Oil billionaire booster, went out and got the best softball pitcher in the country, and they immediately went to the national title game last year. Can't remember who they lost to in that national title game. I think it might have been Texas.
One of my favorite Longhorn sports watching moments of all time.
But they still went from nothing to national runner-up. Then they went out and got a few more players this year. They're going to be dynamite this year.
Yeah.
But he's basically trying to kind of openly break the model of the sport right now by just throwing millions of dollars at players. They have tons of like 5-star commits moving forward.
And facilities built. Facilities. Have you seen the hype video around those facilities? It's incredible.
I'm happy we haven't lost that. Just because we have to pay players, we're still going to make facilities that are 38 times too good for what they're needed. But they went out and they made a big deal about getting the most expensive transfer class in the country. I wasn't completely sure how much it was going to fix their defense. Their defense is phenomenal. And basically, if they can keep their quarterback healthy, which they haven't been able to do, their backup's hurt now, but I think their starter's back to being able to play. They're fourth in SP plus, despite having missed their starting quarterback the last 2 weeks. Like they have really, really clicked. And I think I am very much worried about the way the SEC and Big Ten have basically arranged to hoard all the money from the future of the sport and the playoff and all that. And Texas Tech coming in here and just trying to break things and make people react I can't guarantee that'll produce a good reaction. Or if it's something I like, but I like that they're trying it, I think, and they're really, really, really good and fast this year.
Good fun. They have a big game this weekend. K-State, one of the early preseason Big 12 favorites.
And they're smoking hot, too. So I said all this, and now they're going to lose to K-State.
Exactly. Bill said in this week's review that K-State was really on the come after having really had an early season bumps, but they have a good program, and it should be an interesting game this weekend. Bill, we've kept you longer than we meant to. Always enjoyable to talk to you. Bill Connelly, y'all chase him down. ESPN, ESPN_Bill C on Twitter. It's probably looking pretty similar on Blue Sky, I'm guessing, but you can see Bill lots of places. And buy his book, Forward Progress, The Future of College Football, just out this fall.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bill.
Take care, guys.
That's been the first half of Wharton Moneyball. Come back and join us after the break.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Wharton Podcast Network and Wharton Moneyball. This is Eric Bradlow, Professor of Marketing, Statistics, and Data Science, and I'm here with my co-host, longtime friend, co-graduate school classmate, although years apart, Professor of Statistics and Data Science, Shane Jensen. This is the second half of the show. We just had Cade Massey leading us with Bill Connelly of ESPN and SP Plus, talking about college football and what surprised him. But now, Shane, we have to move on to the open If you'd like line segment of the show, of course, one of the topics I know we want to talk about is baseball. But before we get to what caught your eye in last night's game or baseball more generally, I had turned off the game in the 7th inning. I was sound asleep. And then my 2 West Coast sons, the phone rings at 1 o'clock in the morning. Of course, I'm panicking, like, what is it? What is it? He goes, Dad, you're never going to believe it. In the 13th inning, you've got to put on the game and watch the rest of them. So I did watch innings 13 through 18, by the way, thanks to Ethan and Zach Bradlow. But what caught your eye in the game? There's lots of things, but I'd love to hear, or just more broadly, about what's happening in baseball.
Well, a couple of things that caught my eye specifically about that game, and this is one thing for the game in general. It's pretty cool. Like in 2018, the World Series Game 3 also went 18 innings. They're the 2 longest games in World Series history. The one in 2018 took 7 hours and 20 minutes. The one last night was 6 hours and 40 minutes, basically. So the pitch clock, we've got kind of a nice little controlled experiment for the pitch
Let me ask you a
clock.
question. I know, just to really control, do you happen to know what was the score in that game? Like, was there more scoring, less scoring?
I'm not sure I have it in front of it, but this game, actually, the one last night had 600. Here's one kind of proxy. The one last night had 609 pitches versus only 561 pitches in the one in 2018. So the one last night actually had more pitches.
All right. So now I love that, because actually, to me, that might be an even greater proxy. Although I do agree, number of pitches. It's hard to imagine more pitchers than last night's game. I think, I was about to go in and pitch. My son was about to drive down, who lives in LA, was about to drive down to Dodger Stadium and see if they needed an arm. But
I don't know. One of the other things that I noticed about the game last night, before we get to Shohei, is Yamamoto has pitched 2 complete games in this playoffs and was warming up in the bullpen last night, 2 days after pitching.
Let me ask your opinion about that. As you know, if Yamamoto, he had pitched 2 days ago.
Yeah, a complete game.
Right. He would normally do some throwing today anyway. So do you see it that different than, let's imagine his throwing day is 40, 50 pitches, whatever it is. So why can't he just come into the game and throw 40 or 50 pitches?
I guess I'm not a pitcher, so I don't know. I would assume that whatever kind of bullpen regime he has,
he's not throwing high 90s to let it rip.
Not in the kind of intense environment where he's still facing like Guerrero Jr. and stuff like that. So no, I don't think it would be an analogous simulated game. I mean, I think it's certainly the other situation is like, he's got to, if he comes in, he's got to get through 3 batters, right? It's not like you can suddenly
Let me ask you a question about that. Let me ask you a question. So this is an interesting trade-off. Let's suppose that Yamamoto did have to come in, okay? And let's imagine we believe he's a good pitcher. Not a bad thing to assume, right? Let's imagine it increases their win probability in this game by some number, but if for some reason it also decreases their win probability in game 5, let's say, which is what he would have pitched. How do you think about that mathematics? Like, in other words, while you gain, you might also, we have no evidence that it would lower the probability for game 5, but we could hypothesize it might. How would you think about that? I know how I would.
As a manager, I think I'd go
as a manager.
Immediate benefit at all, type of thing. Like, I think you kind of have to go. I mean, because the hypothetical, like game 5 or 6, the world could change between now and then.
It might never happen.
Yeah, it might never happen. You may not, you never may get to realize that game 6 or 7 benefit. No, and I think it would be like game 6 or 7. He'd be lined up there.
It's also a discrete outcome, as you're pointing out, which is they're now up 2-1. I mean, that's a big difference than being down 2-1. I mean, it's a big difference.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, especially like after that. I mean, we'll see what happens tonight with Shohei on the mound after going getting on base 9 times last night.
Well, let me ask you a question about that.
That's a record, by the way.
I know. Tied a record. Yep, tied a record.
Well, I mean, record in the postseason.
No, I think it tied a record. I saw somebody else.
I mean, the previous times it's ever happened in a baseball game, all in like the in the 1940s or earlier. The previous, I think the postseason record is 8. I think
I thought it was 9. I thought he had matched
the record. And the World Series record prior to last night was 6.
Okay, but let me ask you another question.
Crazy.
Is there any way in your mind that this 18-inning game yesterday affects his pitching ability today?
Yeah, no, I mean, you'd think it would, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe again, he continues to exhibit superhuman powers. So I can only project what me as a human would experience. But I feel like, yes, having to play an 18-inning game and then go out and pitch the next day would definitely, I feel like, affect your performance. So, I mean, I think that's an extra element of course. I mean, they couldn't take him out because he was an automatic on base. I mean, like you can't pull him out of the lineup when he's getting on base every time he goes up. But they must have been. Yes, I think it does. It could have a dramatic effect today. That said, he continues to defy expectations. So I don't know.
Next question. So now he's had, I mean, this game obviously extraordinary, memorable, 9 times on base. He obviously had the, was it 3-homer game?
Three homer and 10 strikeout game.
Right, 3-homer and 10 strikeout game. How much does his level of, let's call it 3 Sigma, 4 Sigma performances? I mean, these are some of the greatest performances in any baseball game ever. How much does it change your view of him, like where he ranks in
I
kind
think
of
he's the greatest of all time now. I actually do. I think he might be the greatest baseball player of all time, which is kind of a crazy thing to say.
Now, just to be clear,
Yeah.
do not believe, I think I agree, I think you're going to agree with what I'm about to say. We can have a debate. Let's take tennis just for 1 second, or football for 1 second. We can debate maybe whether Novak Djokovic is the greatest tennis player of all time, but he's certainly the most accomplished tennis player of all time. Somebody might want to debate whether there was some tiny stretch of their time that was somebody was better than Tom Brady, but certainly Tom Brady by far is the most accomplished football player of all time. You're not saying that you think Shohei is the most accomplished baseball player of all time. You just think
That's
he's
correct. I mean, you can't compete with
right.
Yeah, like I mean, like on like some cumulative weather measure of overall performance. I mean, somebody like I think it's got to still be Babe Ruth. I think Shohei is doing something that nobody in the sport has ever done before, and it's kind of I mean, you sort of said to me, it's kind of it is inspiring. It's reimagining the sport to me. Like he is he really like an absolute unicorn? We'll never see it again, or are we looking at like a situation where like a generation from now, there's multiple like there's two-way players like often on the field or something like that? What if this is like he could actually end up inspiring like a change in the sport, or maybe he's just that. He's like Six Sigma or whatever it is off the chain, and we'll never see something like it again. But it is kind of
Let me ask you a question.
it's like, I think kind of uniqueness is the kind of proxy or construct on which I think he's the greatest of all time. Cumulative achievement, obviously
In
not.
other words, there's a multi-dimensional. You're now taking 2 dimensions by which you could make an argument. Well, let me ask you a question before I make my statement. I think you would agree, but tell me if I'm wrong, that he's farther in the tail as a hitter than he is as a pitcher. Or you wouldn't agree to that?
Yes, that's right. I mean, if you kind of consider them 2 separate people, I mean, yeah, that's right.
If you
Yeah,
consider them 2 separate people.
He's like a top 5 hitter in baseball, and maybe like a top 10 or 15 pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, that's what I was
Right. No, I agree.
asking.
Or at least certainly how he's pitched the last year.
Yeah. So I think it's look. And the other stat I saw, which I know you saw, in his last 7 at bats. Remember, walks don't count as official at bats. He has 5 home runs and 2 doubles. I mean, I've never seen. I mean, look, he has to go down. Look, as you know, obviously, everyone on the show knows I'm a Yankee fan. He has to be Mr. October.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's like, it's and then in the midst of all that, you somehow forget about what Freddie Freeman's doing.
Well, I was going to ask you.
Who's like also like just like clutch home run after clutch
I don't
home
know
run.
if you
I mean,
saw this.
I actually went into this World Series cheering for the Blue Jays, if you believe it.
And
I don't know
I
about
was
you.
rooting for the Blue Jays. Well,
Yeah, but
you're Canadian. I understand you're not from Toronto. I got it. That that might as
yeah.
well be the other part of the world for where
Yeah,
you
and
were.
I mean, normally in the AL East, I don't find myself cheering for him during the course of the season all that often. Anyway, the fun story, but like, I mean, what the Dodgers are doing is, and again, it's hard not to kind of just get wrapped up in the drama of Freeman. Anyway, I think I interrupted you with about
No,
Freddie.
no, 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 no. What I was going to say was, I just saw. I'm sure you saw this stat about Freddie Freeman. I was surprised by this. He's the only player in Major League Baseball history with 2 walk-off home runs in the World Series.
Yeah, that's
I had
interesting.
never seen that. I mean, obviously,
I'd heard, I think, like, if you expand that to
that's
postseason, I think
different.
it's like 4 or 5. Like, then you've got, like, Ortiz and Pujols, and I think maybe Jeter too, I'm not sure. Like, there's a few others that have done it over the
Yeah,
in the
just in the World
postseason, but yeah,
Series.
it is you give some weird cuts of the data when you restrict yourself specifically to the World Series. But you'd think even, like, in, all those decades where the Yankees were destroying, balls, that would have happened before as well.
Can
But
you
that's
remind
crazy.
Yeah, can you remind our listeners on Wharton Moneyball, the Jensen stats for the Hall of Fame and how, as because we're talking about Freddie Freeman, I just wanted to know, remind me, like, roughly, if you remember, how many hits, how many home runs, kind of what gets you into the Hall of Fame. You remember to keep things as the same basic fraction of players as it is now?
Yeah, I believe it's 350 home runs or 2,500 hits, I
Okay,
believe.
well, just to be
I'll
clear,
I'll I'll check that as we're talking or
I know
whatever.
it was 2,500 hits. It could have been 350 home runs. So you agree with me.
He's a Hall of
He's a
Famer.
Hall of Famer now. And by the way, there's an outside chance he could join the elite 500 home run, 3,000 hit club. He has 2,400 and something hits, 369 home runs. He's 36. If he plays 4 more seasons, which
Yeah.
looks pretty good to me, I'm not saying he's going
Yeah,
to.
yeah, that's right.
Look, I think it's less likely he's going to get to 500 home runs, but he may damn well get to 3,000 hits. I mean, he may go down in terms. You go back to, and he's got a 300 lifetime batting average. And these days, 3,000 hits,
But yeah, I mean,
300 batting
I
average,
think,
and near 500 home runs.
and I think just to give it perspective, I mean, I think kind of, marginal Hall of Famers start kicking in around like a WAR of 50 or so, a cumulative career WAR of 50. He's already at like 65.
Really?
Yeah. He's like at 65 WAR. I mean, and so I think I think I'm all, and I haven't checked out like Jaffe's kind of specific Hall of Fame kind of predictions, but I have to think he's a shoo-in. I mean, I think whether he's like a first ballot Hall of Famer will
That's what I
depend
was going to
on
ask you next.
when he goes up and who else is there, right? I mean, I think he's not, he's not like an automatic first ballot kind of guy, I think, but like he's definitely a Hall of Famer. And I mean, the postseason heroics. I mean, what if this is only the beginning? It's crazy.
It could very well be. So let me ask you, one last. You put somewhere. I think it was probably you that put in the rundown. How is Max Scherzer? He's been on 6 different postseason teams.
Yes.
Isn't that worth something?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think so. I mean, and again, I mean, I think he pitched great last. I mean, he gave a gutsy performance last night as well. No, I mean, I think that is incredible. But yeah, he's a basically. I mean, he's been on a several kind of like heroic trajectories. Like, I mean, back on the Nationals, and
Did he win? Was he on the Nationals team that won?
yes, he was.
So was that his only World Series title?
I'm trying to think if he was on the Dodgers in 2020 or not. Let me pull him up again here, like just as we're talking. But I think it might be. Oh, and the Rangers, was he on the Rangers when they won?
Well,
Because I think that might have been also a World
no,
Series.
he's a 2-time World Series
Yeah,
champion,
yeah, Nationals and
2019 and
Rangers.
2023.
Yep, Nationals and Rangers. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, and I mean
Like
it's
3-time Cy Young Award winner. I mean, well, we know Max Scherzer is a Hall of Famer.
But yeah, no, that is first ballot unless there's something really wrong with what's going on at the time.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think I wouldn't have thought this about baseball? So it's been since 2000, I believe, where we've had a repeat champion in baseball.
Yes.
Okay. Remind me, when's the last time it happened in the NFL? The Chiefs, just recently, right? Yeah, the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chiefs were 2-time champs. The Eagles just beat them. They would have been 3-time.
Yeah, well, I mean that they ended a streak
Yeah.
that had been for
The
like a couple of
NBA
decades.
the
Yeah,
NBA, we've definitely had repeat champions. I mean, the Heat were repeat champions, the Warriors were repeat champions, all of that kind of stuff.
we're in the middle of one in hockey.
In hockey, maybe we've had that recently. I'm joking, of course. We have a
Yeah.
two-time repeat champion, the Panthers right now. Why do you think in baseball, I wouldn't have if you had asked me to guess which sport would be the hardest. Well, I don't want to say of the 4 major sports, forget what you know about the data. Which sport and why would you have guessed that being a repeat champion is the hardest? Like on what is there a statistical basis of thinking about it? It could be based on randomness, it could be based on the coin flip model. I'm just
Yeah, I mean,
interested.
I guess the coin. I mean, I feel like baseball has always seemed the most kind of coin flippy. I think the structure of baseball is such that the playoffs selects heavily for good teams, and which makes the differences between the playoff teams minimizes their disparity, and therefore is closest to the coin flip model. And so under the coin flip model, you should not coin flip model plus expanded playoffs. That's another factor, right? So
Right.
one thing that has happened in baseball structurally over the last couple of decades is they have continued to expand or increase the randomness of the more coin flippiness of the playoffs, basically by just expanding the number of rounds. And so, with short series, so I think that's really what kind of leads to it in baseball. I mean, I think it's since the Yankees of 2000 that there's been a repeat champion. I think it's been since '09 that this is even like a team's gone back to the World Series. The Dodgers are the first time to go back to the World Series, I think,
It
even.
was the Phillies, right? The Phillies were the
It was
champ
in '09.
went
Yeah.
back. Wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. Yeah, I guess it has to be. My next question is the reason you think it's because of the Dodgers? It has to be their pitching, right? I understand how great Shohei is as a hitter, but I mean, they've got Yamamoto, Otani, Blake Snell, and I don't even know, I apologize, who their 4th pitcher is.
Glasnow is the one that pitched yesterday.
All right. Well, I mean,
Yeah, no, that's right. And I mean, Sasaki, who is their big offseason signing, is suddenly like this crazy good closer. I do think outside of Sasaki, their bullpen is, to the extent that they have a weakness, their weakness. And so I think they are very much leaning successfully on incredible starting pitching. Again, I mean, Yamamoto has made their bullpen moot. This last couple two complete game like victories. I mean, that's like he's doing stuff that like we haven't seen since like Madison Bumgarner or something.
before
like
we
that.
move to the NFL, by the way, just one point. I know you know this. The total number of runs in the series, the Blue Jays have more runs and more hits, by the way, at this point of the series. So let's not seem like, by the way, that the Blue Jays are getting overwhelmed here. The Blue Jays are not getting overwhelmed. And by the way,
I mean, Freddie Freeman doesn't hit that home run. Guerrero hits it instead. We're probably talking. I mean, we're still talking
totally
about
different. We're
Philadelphia
like,
a lot
wow,
today.
Vlad
I mean, it's a
Guerrero's
great
having
narrative.
no, a totally different narrative. I agree with that. It'll be exciting. Look, if somehow, some way, the Blue Jays win tonight's game, 2-2.
Yeah. No, I'm still pulling for him. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of a Otani fanboy, so I'd love to see him, be special again tonight. But I'm still cheering for the Blue Jays in this series. I hope they make it a long one, and I hope it's yeah. I hope. I mean, it's been magical already. So I mean, I just hope we get more of
completely
that.
agree. So let's spend the last 5 minutes or so talking about the NFL.
Yeah.
What's caught your eye in the NFL?
Well, am I allowed to talk about the Patriots and the fact that
You
they're
can talk
6-2?
about the Patriots. Let me ask you a question.
Well, I want to talk
record,
about the Patriots specifically in the context of FPI. I think I put in the
Yeah.
rundown.
Yeah.
I've been kind of looking at it, and I mean, we don't have to focus on FBI specifically, but I have noticed that the ranking system certainly, FBI specifically, have the Patriots like still in the bottom half or near halfway point of the teams.
As you pointed out, I'm looking at it right now. They have a lower FPI than the
And the
Giants.
It's crazy. The only
Come
thing I can
on.
think of is scroll across, and this is certainly true, and this is the mark against the Patriots that prevents me from getting too excited, is they have the most cream puff schedule that I've ever
They have the easiest
experienced. I
strength
mean,
of
they have played
schedule.
I
It's the easiest, 32. And you know what the remaining strength of schedule is? 29.
yeah. No, I mean, it helps that they were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year, right? So I guess, and so the Giants, for example, the also bad schedule team last year, have one of the hardest schedules, at least so far. So that's the only thing that kind of would argue. But I mean, I personally think I'd like to hear your take. I mean, I get weighting them because they have had kind of a cream puff schedule. Do you still feel like how would you describe the Patriots? Playoff team, actual contending team?
Good
What do
question.
you think?
Good question. So let me just focus, okay, on let me focus on here. Let me just focus on their schedule and who they've played. Okay, so hold on a second here.
Yeah.
Bringing this up here. All right. So, well, there's some good and some bad here.
Well,
So
I mean,
they
it's
lost.
basically all that in terms of who they played, it's basically the Bills and
No, well, they lost to the Raiders to start the season. Not
yeah,
good.
yeah.
They beat the Dolphins, probably not worth much. They lost to the Steelers in a close game. That's not a horrible loss. Now, they beat the Panthers. Panthers lost last week, but that's not a horrible win. Obviously, winning at Buffalo is worth a lot. They lost. They beat the Saints. They stink. They beat the Titans. They stink. And they beat the Browns. They stink.
Well, the Browns defense doesn't stink, but whatever. No, I mean, it's true that again, the schedule has been and will continue. I mean, again, they do play the Bills again, and they play
They
the
play
Ravens, and the Ravens may have
And they
their
play
stuff
the
together
game
by
that
then.
obviously I may go to. I'm still deciding. They're at Buccaneers
But yeah,
in 2
that might,
weeks.
yeah, no, that those so those are going to be a few. There's going to be a few losses coming up the schedule, but I feel like
Maybe.
already at 6-2, they'd have to really tank to not make the playoffs at this.
Look, if they in quotes, they should beat the Jets. That's 7. These are all home games. They should be the Giants. That's 8. They should beat the Jets again. That's 9. They should beat the Dolphins. That's 10. Then they're in the playoffs. So here's my view. They're a playoff team. I think come the playoffs, I do not think they can beat the Chiefs. I do not think they can beat the Bills. Other than that, nobody else in the AFC impresses me that much.
You
That I
know who we haven't been talking about at all? The Colts
Chargers?
are the number 1 team in the
Colts.
AFC.
Yeah, you're right.
See, now, that's the other one I kind of want to get your beat on is that it's kind of like the Colts right now are. I mean, they're shooting the moon. They're looking great. Do you remember that Steelers team that went like 10-0 a few years ago?
do.
And, like absolutely, it was over from there type of thing. I feel like I can't. The Indianapolis Colts have turned it around too quickly and in kind of an improbable way that, like, I can't buy into them yet, and I wonder whether you have at all bought into them yet. I mean, the Pats I have an incentive to buy into, so that's a different story.
Yeah, no.
Colts I can't believe yet.
Just so I'm reminding myself, Danny Dimes is their quarterback, right?
Well, we call him Indiana Jones now.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Indiana Jones. Sorry, it was Danny Dimes. No, I still find it hard to believe that a team led by Daniel Jones is going to beat a team led by Josh Allen or beat a team led by Patrick Mahomes. No, I don't. But if you're asking me, are the Colts going to be a tough out? Yes. Are the Patriots going to be potentially a tough out?
Yeah.
Yes. Because here's what you know also about the Patriots. Vrabel's teams, they're not beating themselves. They may be worse than the Chiefs. They may be worse than the Colts. They may be worse than the Chiefs, Colts, Bills. They're not going to like turn the ball over 4 or 5 times. Drake May's not going to implode during the playoffs. None of that stuff is actually going to happen. So I think the Patriots are a playoff team. And no, I don't think this is their year yet.
Yeah.
But
it's amazing we're talking about in this way, though, because it was a dark couple seasons, but it was only a dark couple seasons.
No, I agree. Well, this has been an hour here on the Wharton Podcast Network. This has been an hour here on Wharton Moneyball. On behalf of myself, Eric Bradlow, I'd like to thank my co-host, Shane Jensen, who's been here for the entire hour. I'd like to thank Cade Massey, who was here, and our guest, Bill Connelly. I'd like to thank our producer, Marissa Renna. I'd like to thank our associate producer, sound engineer, Dion Simpkins. Between now and next week, enjoy your sports, enjoy your statistics. We'll see you next week here on Wharton Moneyball.